One of Elon Musk's whiz kids that have been rooting around in the government's payment system at the Treasury Department has resigned over some very old, well, not very old, but very problematic social media posts. And I say that they're not very old because he ain't very old. He's 25 years old. The Wall Street Journal uncovered some racist and eugenicist posts from said 25-year-old. This is Marco Elez. Elez had previously worked for a number of companies run by Musk and was picked for DOGE. Now, one of those posts read, quote, "Normalize Indian hate." Yeah, that was back in September. Another read, "You could not pay me to marry outside my ethnicity." Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure y'all ain't getting that many offers. Let's be honest, okay? And again, why would that be? Could it be that perhaps you might be a little bit racist?
The Republican Party's racist.
Could be. Oh, well, I mean, this next quote should clear that one up. Just for the record, he said, "I was racist before it was cool." That was back in July. I got news for you. Racism, never cool. It's actually very low IQ. It is cringe. It will always be cringe. So, what does that say? Oh, you're going to say he's trolling. He's trolling. He's being edgy, man. Really, really. You know, the shock value that you might get from saying those things from other people is really just shock that you could be that dumb, that something that stupid could come out of your mouth. All right. That's the shock value. And speaking of dumb, by the way, in June, the account also tweeted, "I would not mind at all if Gaza and Israel were both wiped off the face of the earth." Wow. Hey, Anti-Defamation League, once you're done washing Elon's balls, you're going to need to come and cover up for this blatant anti-Semitism, because he just basically said death to Israel. Okay? Look, the way the ADL and its leader, Jonathan Greenblatt, had defended Elon Musk's Nazi salute, because that's what it was, well, this is after they went after Jewish pro-peace protesters on these college campuses, right? It has completely obliterated any legitimacy that organization had, which is a shame because there is real anti-Semitism around. It is a huge problem. It is a huge problem that exists pretty much primarily on the right. I mean, you drill down to every right-wing conspiracy theory and you find anti-Semitism right at the core. Oh, it's the Jews. They're controlling the media. They're controlling the government. Oh, they're pulling the strings of the puppet master, George Soros. Every single time. Okay? I mean, come on. There's even
Jewish space lasers.
Come on. But it's the left that has an anti-Semitism problem. No, you have I'm going to cover up for genocide and ethnic cleansing problem by calling people who are against those things anti-Semitic. Yeah. But Greenblatt, again, on the issue of Musk, I don't see it. I'm too busy going after the left, after these college kids, which again, a lot of them were Jewish. Okay. So anyway, back to Elez, right? Elez resigned on Thursday after these posts were reported. And now, of course, Elon Musk is going after the reporter who actually exposed these posts. So that's great. And doing Twitter polls on whether or not to hire him back. Awesome. It's to be expected, you know. I mean, it shows you that Elon Musk is not hiring the best, okay? Big surprise that Apartheid Clyde is hiring racists and eugenicists in order to get into the treasury. That must be the best and brightest, man. Really? They're not really all that bright, apparently. But hey, don't worry, though. We were assured that by the Treasury Department that Elez, and Tom Kraus were only given read-only access to our personal information, things like our social security numbers. So you couldn't possibly change the code and install backdoors into the system so that at some point in time they can initiate the robbery, right? Right? According to numerous reports, Elon actually did have the ability to rewrite payment system-based code. In fact, a federal judge issued an order on Thursday confirming that Elon did have full access to our information. So I want to give a huge shout out here to Wired Magazine for being on top of the story. A+ reporting, y'all. Where was the New York Times? Where was the Washington Post? I don't know. Wired's out there killing it, though. Mainstream media not doing as well. And look, if I'm mistaken, then I apologize. But I haven't really seen them do anything other than downplay some of the crap that Elon and Trump have been up to, playing both sides. Now, the question, though, which is interesting here is, who vetted these people? Who vetted this guy? I mean, obviously, this had to have come up, right? Yeah. In an interview with the Bloomberg News Service published on Thursday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said he had personally vetted one of the 2 Treasury employees from Musk's DOGE team. Quote, "These are highly trained professionals." One of them's 19, okay? Doesn't even have a work history, all right? This is not some roving band running around doing things. This is methodical, and it's going to yield big savings. To which I have to say, bullshit. Wow. I mean, they're highly trained professionals, everybody. And one of them happens to be extremely racist, and another one went by the handle Big Balls. Oh. But I'm not done, by the way, because this roving band of probably incel misfits, let's be honest, were led by someone named Tom Krause. Now, Krause, boy, this guy's something else. He is a Musk ally, obviously, and the CEO of the Cloud Software Group. And like Musk, Krause is classified as a special government employee, otherwise known as a super volunteer. But has top secret security clearance and is subject to federal requirements. So ethics requirements. So, that's interesting. Should put that in our back pocket for later. Okay. Now, Krause is known in the industry for converting software products to subscription service and ratcheting up prices as much as tenfold. So if you're one of those many, many people out there who are extremely pissed off that everything now is a subscription, like everything. I'm looking at you, Adobe. Krause is one of the guys who made that happen. It really has done a lot to spearhead the "you will own nothing and like it" BS that has taken over tech. All right. Once again, Adobe. What the hell? In 2022, cloud computing firm Citrix, which was later renamed Cloud Software Group, hired Krause as the CEO as it merged with a smaller company known as Tibco Software. The same year, Cloud Software Group laid off 1,000 people. The following year, laid off several thousand more, and just last month, laid off another few hundred people. He is out there systematically gutting the workforce and then pocketing the difference. Oh, wow. Does that sound familiar? Krause also eliminated a variety of employee perks, refused to pay vendors, and shut down offices. Oh, man, that is just like Elon Musk. When he took over Twitter, I'll let that sink in. And then I'm going to sink the company. Now, David Morgan, a disabled Air Force veteran who had joined Cloud Software Group around the same time as Krause, told the American Prospect the CEO, quote, runs everything into the ground. The dude is a heartless person who should not be in any line of business, but especially not in the government sector. If DOGE wants to cut the fat in government, Krause should look in the mirror and cut off Citrix. Damn. Again, I want to shout out to Prospect as well. David Dan and his group over there are doing some great journalism. Now, this piece specifically was written by Marin Kasek, And she cites anonymous employees who posted on forums about Krause, which one of them seems really relevant here. One of them read, "The criteria for DOGE is how many people you have fired, how much you enjoy firing people, and how little you care about the impact on people's well-being. No wonder TK was tapped for this. He's their dream employee." So yeah, and that fits with the Trump ethos as well. Because once again, Trump is famous because he likes to fire people.
You're fired.
So that's what they're doing in the government right now. They're just coming in and they're just firing everyone.
Fired! Fired!
That's it. That's what he's doing. And this also follows the way that private equity loves to run things, which is they take over a company, run it into the ground, and then golden parachute their way out of it. Okay? So the company takes on all the debt, and then the CEOs, the leaders, they jump out with their golden parachutes, and everyone else gets screwed over. It sucks when it happens in the private industry, and it's terrible. Now, they're doing the same playbook on the government. And so, when that goes down, yes, some people are going to get a great golden parachute, including Elon Musk and Donald Trump. But everyone else, the American people, we're all going to be left holding the bag. So, I mean, look, anyone who has ever followed what has happened to companies that they like that were taken over by private equity should be very, very concerned that this is exactly, they're following that exact playbook to the letter. And, oh boy, not good. The far-right wonderkins over at DOGE claiming to find massive amounts of fraud and corruption at the highest levels of USAID. And so that's why they got to shut it down. However, their examples of fraud are not actually examples of fraud. They're just things that they ideologically oppose. Look, just because you don't agree with where the money goes doesn't mean that it's actually fraudulent. See, fraud has an actual meaning. Words mean things. Fraud means, hey, you said that this money was going to be spent for this, but it was actually spent for something else. No, in this case, the money was spent exactly the way that it was spent. Okay. Now, some examples here. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, she went after USAID for sending $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbian workplaces. Okay, $70,000 for a DEI musical in Ireland, and $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. Now, of course, the details that Leavitt gets it generally happen to be wrong. Some of them are State Department grants, not USAID. But apparently that does not matter. Now, she also claimed that USAID had spent $47,000 on a transgender opera in Colombia called As One by Laura Kaminsky, which is about the personal journey of a transgender woman, Hannah, from her childhood in a small town. Okay, some $25,000 was apparently used for the opera from a State Department program aimed at strengthening U.S. relations globally, which you would think is somewhat important, right? The remaining $22,000 came from other sources, not federal funding, according to Not US, a publication of the Al Britton Journalism Institute. So, look, a lot of the details, like it actually wasn't USAID, it was more State Department grants, but at the end of the day, your objections to it are just ideological and not really indicative of fraud or corruption. Okay? And at the same time, right, the amount of money that we're talking, I mean, for one, no, they didn't send like $8 million for condoms or I'm sorry, it was like $1 million or so, or $50 million for condoms. They didn't actually do that. Or $8 million on Politico. It was like $44,000 for a subscription for the entire department so they could keep up on their, keep up on the news because that's part of their job. But anyway, all right. But when it comes down to how much money is spent by USAID, right? It's a fraction of the money that's spent by our federal government. In 2023, for example, Congress allocated $43.4 billion to USAID, which is about 0.7% of the total $6.134 trillion federal budget, according to reports from the Congressional Research Service and former Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. So, you know, drop in the bucket compared to the rest of our federal budget. And much of that USAID funding does not go to transgender plays. Okay. Not that I would care. I mean, I think that's great. Totally fine. Super based, actually. But no, most of that funding actually goes towards agencies like the World Food Program, Feeds Hungry Children, UNICEF, and non-governmental agencies like Save the Children. Not towards advancing any sort of diversity programs, which again, I think diversity programs are totally fine. So at the end of the day, USAID funding actually does a lot of good. Now, I'm not saying everything that USAID has done is good. A lot of it is actually in the advancement of U.S. soft power, which is kind of a way for us to be like, we'll give you some money if you do the things that I want you to do, right? Okay, well, yeah, I get it. I actually prefer soft power as opposed to the other kind of power, which is military, okay? So, yeah, but yeah, again, you have an agenda, and in this case, you want to promote diversity across the world. I'm not going to be opposed to that agenda, okay? Because I happen to like diversity. I happen to think that it's a good thing. But hey, you could be of the opinion of, I think that is wasteful. Okay. Well, that's pretty subjective, though. One person's waste is another person's lifeline or worthy project. Now, that said, speaking of waste, I know one case where I think there might have been some wasteful spending here. And what is that? That's the case of Ivanka Trump. That's right. The already wealthy Trumpkin took advantage of USAID money for her own event. What? According to USAID documents, Ivanka actually used over 11 grand from the department in 2019 to buy video recording and reproducing equipment for a White House event. Why couldn't she buy it herself? I mean, it's not like she's not rich. Documents show $11,539 was used by Trump in November 2019 to purchase software, CDs, tapes, and records. The purchase was approved by Jennifer Healy, who was serving as USAID Deputy Chief of Staff at the time, and the Administrator's Office. It is not clear which White House event the equipment was used for. So we don't really know. But that's the thing, right? She is not the only Trump to have been fine with USAID. In fact, Melania was quite a fan of the agency back in the day, as was Donald. Now, on her four-country tour through Africa back in 2018, for example, which was her first major solo international trip as First Lady, Melania had praised a successful USAID program in Malawi. She handed out bags, school supplies, and soccer balls as part of her Be Best initiative, and as part of a collaboration with a USAID literacy program. Talking about literacy program. Could use one here. No. She told ABC News in an exclusive interview during that visit, quote, "It's really touching. I'm glad that I'm here to see in person what the children are going through and see that they're educating them in the right way." That program distributed more than 1.4 million textbooks to students in need. And I think that that's a worthy program. It's a great use of money. Educating people. We should be doing more of that and less of the bombing. At another stop on her African tour, Melania Trump also toured the Great Sphinx in Giza, where she observed a USAID-backed project to limit the groundwater that threatened to erode hieroglyphics in the iconic Egyptian monument. In fact, according to one former senior USAID official in the region, quote, "She was well briefed. She was personally interested. She was very impressed that we were working so closely with local government to provide economic opportunities for the Egyptian people." Now, what's going on now, that same official who wanted to stay anonymous for certain reasons, fear of retribution, they said, quote, "It's hard to stomach what President Trump is doing now in disbanding the agency. Quote, it's very disturbing, and it's all politics. Until you see the work that the work of USAID firsthand, it's very difficult to understand and explain. You leave a different person." Now, I mentioned that Donald Trump himself had once supported USAID. 2019, then President Trump signed a memo launching a new Women's Global Development and Prosperity Initiative aimed at empowering women in the developing world. The $50 million fund, known as WGDP, was developed to be distributed by USAID with an ambitious goal of empowering 50 million women in developing countries by 2025. The initiative was led by the president's daughter and then senior advisor, Ivanka Trump. So, what changed? What changed? Well, the people that are around Donald Trump. Ivanka no longer taking a role, okay, in this administration. No, she decided to stay completely out of it, okay? So she doesn't have a role, and now you have Elon Musk. Yeah. Not only that, but you've got Russell Vought, who is a Christian nationalist, who was one of Trump's top advisors. And so what this is their plan to kill off government, mainly so that people like Elon Musk can give himself tax cuts. That's the overall goal. Now, what's interesting, though, and I named those two people, Vought and Musk, but they actually disagree on some of this stuff. Project 2025 actually calls for a different role for USAID, but a role nonetheless. Chapter in the manifesto by Max Primorak, a senior research fellow in the Margaret Thatcher Center for Freedom at the Heritage Foundation, based in Washington, D.C., suggested a presidential administration could resize and repurpose USAID's humanitarian aid portfolio to restore the original purpose of providing emergency short-term relief, prepping vulnerable communities for transition, and doing no harm without, of course, completely dismantling it, which is what Musk wants to do. Musk wants to just wipe it off the face of the earth. It's gone. It's gone. All right? I know.
Bing, 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 boom. It's gone.
Primorak also recommended that USAID should operate more like it did in Trump's first term, including pushing pro-life and pro-family friendly policies, promoting international religious freedom, and building an unprecedented genocide response infrastructure. And so, kind of like, the whole, in line with the whole Christian nationalist theme of Project 2025. Okay. But Musk, as I mentioned, he's like, it is a ball of worms. We must completely gut it and get rid of it. Delete USAID. Got to get rid of it. And look, that's the direction that we're going. Okay. This really does show you how much power Elon Musk, who was Donald Trump's biggest donor, how much power he has over this administration. On Thursday, the Trump administration announced sanctions against the International Criminal Court, which is kind of ironic, considering how Trump is a criminal. Now, the ICC, which prosecutes individuals for grave international crimes, was sanctioned by the Trump administration over the decision to issue arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former defense minister, Yoav Gallant, for war crimes and crimes against humanity during the Israeli assault on Gaza. Now, Trump, of course, claims the ICC was unfairly targeting my good friend, my dear friend, Bibi. Now, it is important to note that the ICC had also issued a warrant for a Hamas official, Mohammed Dief, whom Israel accused of being one of the masterminds of the October 7th attack, which was horrible. It was a horrific attack, okay? Now, that said, Dief was killed by an Israeli airstrike last year, so he can't really be arrested. But Netanyahu and gallant, still alive. You can take them in. Now, that said, not if they're in the United States. And look, they weren't going to be arrested in the United States before. If Kamala Harris had won, they also wouldn't have been arrested. So let's be honest about that. Okay. That said, this takes this a step further against the ICC. I do not imagine that a Harris administration or a Biden administration would have taken this extra step, which is to place economic and travel sanctions on anyone working on ICC investigations into citizens of the U.S. or its allies. The sanctioned ICC personnel and their families would not be able to enter the United States, so that's a travel ban, and their assets could also be frozen, and their power to purchase any property in the United States blocked. So basically, if you were investigating genocide or ethnic cleansing by the U.S. or any of their allies, Donald Trump wants to make sure that you cannot do that, that you are blocked, okay? Which is, again, worse than what Joe Biden was doing. Joe Biden was ignoring the ICC. The Democrats were inviting Netanyahu to come speak to Congress. All of that was bad enough. But Trump is now just saying, we're not just going to ignore the ICC, we're going to attack it. We're going to attack its legitimacy. Okay? Now, that's going to have repercussions. It already is. The response came swift. Dozens of countries, including Germany, South Africa, and Mexico, as well as Canada, said Friday that President Trump's decision to sanction the ICC would, quote, erode the international rule of law. Something that the United States hasn't really cared too much about. Let's be honest. Okay. There's a joint statement from 79 countries, which reads in part, such measures increase the risk of impunity for the most serious crimes and threaten to erode the international rule of law, which is crucial for promoting global order and security. We regret any attempts to undermine the court's independence, integrity, and impartiality. Look, the U.S. was never part of the ICC. Neither was Israel. In fact, they joined about 40 countries. They joined the 40 countries that are not part of this agreement. So they never would have had any impact here in the United States to try to hold the United States accountable if, for example, we were involved in a genocide or ethnic cleansing. Okay? And there's a reason for that. Because apparently we like to do ethnic cleansing, or at least help other countries do certain ethnic cleansing. Look, here's the thing. The United States actually refused to join the ICC when it was formed during the Clinton administration. Clinton was like, military is kind of afraid of, so-called political prosecutions. Yes, that's right. But in reality, it was just a way to protect the United States and its officials if they decided to do any war crimes from being arrested by the ICC. Okay? And so, again, the U.S. has had a long history of basically saying we don't really care about international justice or the court. Okay? We don't care. We don't care at all. All right? But, we will, kind of give out some, maybe a little bit of support lip service, we believe in justice and all that, but we just don't think that what you're doing is right. We don't agree with that. We don't want to get caught up in this, these persecutions. That's what it'll be. It'll be persecutions from other countries that we may have wronged. But this is different. This extra step, I believe, is from Donald Trump wanting to do pretty much whatever Israel wants. They're doing everything that they can to defend Israel. And I thought that it was bad under Biden. No, it's worse. Look, Israel has been accused credibly of using starvation as a method of warfare and by restricting humanitarian aid, as well as, of course, intentionally targeting civilians. Okay, there is a reason why the civilian death toll in Gaza was so high. Trump says, I don't actually care about that. We're going to we're going to start, giving them the 2,000-pound bombs. Biden had at least said, okay, that's too much. All right, we'll let you have all these other weapons, but not those 2,000-pound bombs. That's too much. Trump's like, ship them out. Go ahead, use them. Don't worry. And not only that, but here, have some more bulldozers. Now, what's interesting about the bulldozers is that you wouldn't normally think that as a weapon of war, but the kind of war that Israel is fighting right now, not really a war, more like ethnic cleansing. And so their targets are houses, homes, people's homes, entire neighborhoods getting bulldozed so that those people will be forced to leave, okay, doing the ethnic cleansing, and so that Jewish settlers can come in and steal the land. That's the ultimate goal here. And Trump has already said, we're on board with that. In fact, not only are we on board, but you know what? We're going to come in, we're going to own Gaza, and we're going to develop it into a nice little resort. It'll be like the Riviera, of the Middle East. It'll be tremendous. It'll be great. It may be the Palestinians can come back in, but probably not. Why would they ever want to come back? Look, obviously there's a ton of problems with this, but it really does show you the overall point here that I'm trying to make is what happened to America first? What happened to America first? No, what we're doing is Israel first, okay? And it's situations like this, as well as, if you can remember when Trump froze all foreign aid, he did so except to Israel. Which country is he putting first? It ain't us. California farmers are still sticking with President Donald Trump, even after he nearly drowned them.
Water, big water, ocean water.
According to Politico, farmers and their Republican allies have been brushing off the president's move last week to dump more than 2 billion gallons of their irrigation water from reservoirs in the name of aiding the LA wildfires. Now, of course, the problem there is the water was not going to be used in LA. Okay, so that it basically was just a giant waste of water. Like, congratulations. You have wasted water. Now, Zach Stoller, a farmer with citrus and almond orchards, he irrigates from those reservoirs and president of the Tulare County Farm Bureau in the state's arid Central Valley, said the situation, quote, definitely was a little nerve-wracking for a while. Just for a while, though. Because we almost got flooded by Trump. Quote, I'm a farmer. I have a conservative mindset. I encourage the trigger-pulling attitude. Like, hey, let's just get stuff done. Yes, let's get stuff done, everybody. Even though it might be the wrong stuff. Like, hey, I want to get stuff done. Yeah, let's nail my penis to a wall. Hey, I got something done. Right. Sure. Might have harmed more than it helped. Okay. Look, Trump said, though, I'm going to turn on the water. I'm going to turn it on. And so the officials, right before this happened, by the way, officials from DOGE, who just showed up, okay, they visited a pumping plant in the state's main water hub earlier that day. Okay, the day that Trump said, I'm gonna open up the water. Big water, ocean water.
Water, big water, ocean water.
But not actually ocean water, but you know what I mean, reservoir water. But following that, on Thursday, the Army Corps of Engineers alerted local water authorities in the Central Valley that it would be cranking releases from 2 of its reservoirs to maximum capacity, a scenario that sparked fears among locals of flooding. Because, that would not be good. Those local officials were not prepared for that. They're like, oh my God, what are you doing? No. Get on the phone. We got to call this guy. They called their Republican congressman and others in Trump's orbit to tell him, do not turn on the water. Don't do it. there was even, or I should say, they were able to talk the White House down from what could have been an even more disastrous waste of water, because there was already water wasted. Okay. Now, of course, those same people were like, well, thank you, Trump, for trying. Talk about low expectations. Okay. Yeah, you almost drowned us. Woo, because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, at least you tried. Let's just get stuff done. Now pull the trigger. Here's Representative Vince Fong, a Republican representative whose district includes the affected farmers. We're excited that we have a president that's engaged in California water policy and maximizing the coordination of the systems. Thank you, Trump, for dumping a bunch of water and almost flooding us all out. Oh, we appreciate it so much. Really? And look, here's the thing, right? He has no idea what he's talking about when it comes to the water systems in California. But yet, during the campaign, he kept going after Gavin Newsom, right? Even back in 2020, right? During a rally in Bakersfield, during the state's last drought, Trump was saying, quote, 50 gallons is very, very little. Can you imagine a state being rationed when you have millions and millions and millions of gallons being poured into the Pacific Ocean? But that didn't actually happen. They weren't doing that. They're not pouring water into the ocean, okay? But anyway, the whole thing of how dare you waste water, Gavin Newsom, and then Trump later on orders the wasting of water. Oops. Now, of course, that's going to have an impact because guess what? It's been a dry winter. Dry winters mean droughts. Okay, that means more fire. That means less water for crops. Less water for crops means higher prices. Because, the yields won't be as good. Now, Greg Meester, the mayor of Potterville, closest town to the Army Corps dams, said he was most concerned that the releases would chip away at the supplies local farmers will end up needing later in the year. Quote, the fear is just because we're heavily dependent on that water during the summer for agriculture, what the impacts may be. I've heard predictions of it not being a very wet winter. Oh, it's not a wet winter, huh? Well, okay, but let me counter with
one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Yeah, he'll just come in there with a Sharpie and then draw on some snow. Draw on some water, okay? I mean, okay, but look, that's a problem, okay? Now, the other issue, though, the big one, I should say, is the lack of communication, okay? Look, water officials had very little time to react to Trump's announcement and basically ask him not to do it because they didn't need to do that. Again, none of this water went to go and fight the fires in L.A. Don Wright, a publisher and consultant who covers the region's agricultural industry, noted that water officials were at a local bowling alley when the news hit. They ended up getting all on their phones and basically trying to prevent Trump from wasting the water and flooding them out. Wright said that water users asked Representatives Jim Costa and Fong, who represent the affected area, as well as former Representative Devin Nunes, and maybe his cow, and the former Interior Secretary David Bernhardt to intercede with Trump to try to explain the situation, to explain the problem with just opening up the water, which you can't do. And of course, the reason they have to do that is because this child knows absolutely nothing. Nothing. Now, thankfully, they were able to convince the White House to pull it back. In fact, it went to about a third of the flow the Army Corps of Engineers had originally planned on doing, and on Sunday, the flow had stopped completely because they didn't need it. Okay? Didn't help contain any fires. And at the end of the day, that water largely ended up being used to recharge the groundwater. So, crisis averted this time. But what about the next time Trump just hauls off and orders something done because it's a good soundbite? This is a problem with Trump. getting involved in issues that he knows nothing about. These are local water issues. Yeah, so he can go out and say, "Oh, I turned on the water in California, and it was gushing all over the place, and it was wonderful." But in reality, you actually might have hurt those farmers, or the next time, you definitely will hurt those farmers. You nearly caused a damn flood, and since we're going to be getting into the dry season, all right, because it's already a dry winter, farmers are going to need that money. That water. Well, let's just say that it's not going to turn out well if they start to run out. But gee, I hope the soundbite was worth it. That said, judging by these people's reaction, the reaction of these pro-Trump farmers, I guess it was. During the National Prayer Breakfast in Washington, D.C., President Donald Trump announced that he is creating a White House faith office and will be cracking down on so-called anti-Christian bias.
Today I'm signing an executive order to make our Attorney General, who's a great person, she's going to be a great Attorney General, Pam Bondi, the head of a task force, brand new, to eradicate anti-Christian bias. It's about time, isn't it, though, really? So many times you hear, but you don't hear the anti-Christian bias. The mission of this task force will be to immediately halt all forms of anti-Christian targeting and discrimination within the federal government, including at the DOJ, which was absolutely terrible, the IRS, the FBI, terrible, and other agencies.
It was absolutely terrible. Really, do you have any examples of this anti-Christian bias? Oh, look, I'm an American. I don't believe that anybody should be targeted for their religious beliefs. I think that I think that the First Amendment says freedom of religion. Yes, I don't think you should be targeted for that. That said, are there any examples of this? No, there is not. This is dumb and unnecessary. I mean, again, where are the Christians that are being discriminated against in the government? Where are they? Well, to be fair, of course, only 87% of Congress and 98% of elected Republicans who happen to be in power all over the government are Christian. So obviously, there must be so much bias there. Oh, yes. They only run 87% of Congress. I guess it would only be really fair for the Christians if they owned 100% of Congress. Oh, yeah. Right. Look, you may think that that's a joke, but I think that is exactly what they want to do. Now, that said, I want to go to his order, okay? Now, the order that he signed says the previous administration had engaged in an egregious pattern of targeting peaceful Christians. Oh, my goodness. While ignoring violent anti-Christian offenses. Oh, no. The Biden Department of Justice sought to squelch faith in the public square by bringing federal criminal charges and obtaining, in numerous cases, multi-year prison sentences against nearly 24 peaceful pro-life Christians for praying and demonstrating outside of abortion facilities. Those convicted included a Catholic priest and a 75-year-old grandmother, as well as an 87-year-old woman and a father of 11 children who were arrested 18 months after praying and singing hymns outside an abortion facility in Tennessee as part of a politically motivated prosecution campaign by the Biden administration. I rectified this injustice on January 23rd, 2025 by issuing pardons in these cases. Oh my goodness. So they were praying and singing hymns and, oh, Biden, lawless Catholic Joe Biden comes in and arrests them. Oh my goodness. Now, what that order neglected to mention is the fact that not only were they, yes, praying and singing, they also forced their way into a health clinic and blocked the doors. The indictment against them said that they had violated the law by using that obstruction to injure, intimidate, and interfere with the clinic's employees and with a patient, that was like pregnant, very pregnant. Lauren Handy, for example, was sentenced to nearly 5 years in prison for leading the blockade and directing them to link themselves together with locks and chains to block the clinic's doors. Wait, I thought they were singing and demonstrating outside. No, they were inside private property. That happens to be a crime. Not that Trump cares, because Trump pardoned all the Capitol rioters too, that were inside property. Now, a nurse ended up spraining her ankle when one person shoved her while entering the clinic, and a woman was accosted by another blockader while having labor pain. Not only that, but police ended up finding 5 dead fetuses in Handy's home after she was indicted. The lady was hoarding dead fetuses. What? That's bizarre. Okay. Now, his order also said, at the same time, Catholic churches, charities, and pro-life centers sought justice for violence, theft, and arson perpetrated against them, which the Biden Department of Justice largely ignored. After more than 100 attacks, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a resolution condemning the violence and calling on the Biden administration to enforce the law. Here's the thing about that, right? So, remember Henry Enrique Tarrio, leader of the Proud Boys, okay? Proud Boys went through and vandalized black churches. Enrique Tarrio got pardoned by Donald Trump. So you targeted black churches, okay, and got pardoned by the president, who is now complaining, oh, Biden was letting people go that targeted churches. What? But here's the thing, though, right? When it comes down to it, those attacks are terrible. I don't agree with attacking people's churches, right? Whether it be black church, white church, synagogue, mosque, etc. Right? That said, it's generally not federal government. It's not their job to go in and look at simple vandalism, okay, to intercede, because that's for local law enforcement, right? Unless I guess it's evidence of a hate crime. That said, all right, arson is a bit more serious. So in cases of arson, the federal government does sometimes get involved. What I'm trying to say there is that these crimes weren't intentionally ignored as some part of anti-Christian bias. In the cases where the federal government didn't step in, it's because local law enforcement already had it taken care of, had it handled, was looking into it, was punishing the people involved. And so, yeah. Now, that said, talk about attacks on Christian churches, right? Well, the number of vandalism incidents against churches actually remains small compared with incidents targeting abortion clinics documented annually by the National Abortion Federation, an abortion rights group. It's according to USA Today. So, look, at the end of the day, it is not Christianity that is under attack in this country. What is under attack is actually the right of women to control their own bodies. Whereas also you've got Muslims under attack. You have Christian nationalists that are attacking freedom of speech. So that's what you have. You have Christian nationalists that are trying to force their beliefs on the entire country, on everyone else. And when they're stopped by the Constitution, that's when they go, anti-Christian bias, anti-Christian bias. Look, Trump's order to prevent this so-called bias, right, doesn't actually name a real, actual example of anti-Christian bias because it doesn't exist, all right? But thing is, this is a move that is meant to promote Christian nationalism, okay? And that's what Project 2025 was about, and that's what a lot of the Heritage Foundation, a lot of the far right have been wanting to do, and now this is their chance. I mean, Trump set up a White House faith office staffed by Paula White, all right, Paula White Cain, who is an evangelical, okay? Now, having her head up that office sends the signal that this is the only religion that we're going to care about, okay? If it's a faith office, then it should be representative of all faiths, right? But no, that's not going to be representative of all faiths. They're not going to look at an anti-Muslim bias. Of course not. They're not going to look at an anti-Jewish bias. No, they're just going to make up anti-Christian bias, okay? And not just anti-Christian bias, but the fact that Donald Trump had responded so negatively to that bishop that just said, be nice to immigrants, have some empathy. The reaction to that, where you had people in the Republican Party saying she should be deported. She's a native of New Jersey. All right. Deport her. Get rid of her. What a disgrace. It really shows you that it's not even, looking out for Christianity. It's just trying to promote a very specific, very far right, very restrictive version of it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.